Welcome to Success Talk. I'm your host, Aurea McGarry, and if you have questions on how to achieve success in these ever-changing, crazy times, here is the place to get help and tools from entrepreneurs and business owners who are achieving not only success, but wealth and happiness. They're balancing it all, and they're here to share their secrets and their golden nuggets with you. And today, my very special guest is none other than a wonderful author and friend, Grace Sammon. Grace, welcome to the show.
Hey, Aurea, thanks so much for having me.
I am so glad you came. So highly recommended, referred to me by another friend, and I am just loving you already, and I know we're just going to be friends forever. You are such a neat person.
As are you. This is going to be a great time together. Thanks for having me again.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Well, before we get into your amazing book, I first want to know, you gave me these wonderful success golden nuggets, should we say. Tell us a little bit about your list for living a better, more successful, wonderful life.
Well, first of all, I would not say that I have all of the answers. I just have the answers that worked for me, and hopefully they'll work for some of your listeners. Yeah. I think the first thing is believing that you can have your best life, even in the face of diversity and adversity. You know, I've been fired from jobs. I've walked away from jobs. I've thought none of it was going to work. And then you just have to kind of back up and say, this is what I have. I'm going to make this work. And that, I think, is probably my best one.
Attitude. You're right. If you think about it, you'll believe it. It's like not seeing is believing, but believing is seeing the results. If you don't believe that things could be better, or you can make a difference or pivot, whatever it is, that's the first step. So really good golden nugget. Believe you can change it. Believe you can think more positive about it. Because what do you have to lose by being more positive anyway?
Exactly. And I think the other one then follows right from that is you have to know yourself, because we all have our different strengths and weaknesses. So what is that thing that gives you that buzz? Sometimes that buzz is a necessity, right? You've got kids to raise, or you've got other challenges that have to be solved. But what is that thing that in your heart, you know that when you're in that zone, and for me, it's writing or finding creative solutions to things. But pay attention to thy known self be true. My mom said it all the time. Shakespeare said it all the time. So a lot of people think that quote.
Say it again. That was a really good quote.
To thy known self be true.
And what does that mean exactly? Explain that a little bit more.
Well, a lot of people, first of all, think it comes from the Bible, which my mom always did. It actually comes from Shakespeare. It really means know yourself, listen to who you are, and don't stray from that path.
I love that you said that, because when I coach my clients, I say the same thing. Go back to those little girl or little boy dreams when you were 5 years old and someone would come up to you, an adult, and they pinch your little cheeks and they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you blurt out right before, you don't know that you're not going to be able to, or that you're not going to be tall enough or thin enough or smart enough. It's just what you want to be. And before everybody tells you all the reasons why you can't do that, and might be an astronaut or a model or actress or a writer or, a Shakespearean poet, it doesn't matter, but it comes out. I said, go back there, because there you'll find your inner dreams. And let's just say you wanted to be a ballerina and you took dance, but you never had the right body type to be, in the Nutcracker on, in Lincoln Center or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you're good enough and passionate enough to choreograph, to teach, to be in the world of ballet. Not everybody's meant to be the emaciated. You can count the backbones, right, the vertebrae in your back. It's okay, but it doesn't mean you can't be in the world at all. And you have to go somewhere else and do something you don't like to do. Do what your passion is and just pivot to be in it in any way you can. So you're living in your divine world.
And I think then it's also really important, exactly what you said, but then do ballet in your kitchen. Dance.
Of course, I'll never stop. Absolutely. Right? I don't care, how tall, how thin, doesn't matter. Enjoy. Dance like nobody's watching. But if you were hoping that would be your career to get paid to be the prima ballerina, and you never make it to that prima sugar plum fairy or whatever, doesn't matter. Be in the chorus, be the choreographer, be someone who owns a ballet company. There's so many other things to do if the absolute way you were thinking. Like for me, I always wanted to be able to be a rich and famous actress, but I won my Emmy not for being an actress. not for being what somebody else wanted me to be and getting hired for a part. I created my own show. I created the whole world that got me that by doing it, by telling stories about good people and nonprofits and charities. I want it in a whole different way I was thinking about when I was 5 years old and wanted to be an actress and sit on Johnny Carson's couch. But
don't you
the dream still came true, just different.
Exactly. And I think we create ourselves and recreate ourselves all of the time. And I think that's a really important thing for listeners to pay attention to in their own lives. I'm going to be 67 years old this year.
No,
And I,
no,
yes, yes,
oh
no work
gosh.
either. About work. No. So when I was coming up, my dad was in television news and I wanted to be a newscaster. And my mom, being a product of her time, said, oh, you can't do that. Who will, stay home and feed the kids? So I listened to that voice. And then I did find something I loved. I fell in love with higher education and I worked in higher education. I married a university professor and I had kids and I had happily ever after all planned out, very different than what I initially thought. But then I got fired from that job and I had to pivot. I had 2 small kids. My husband decided he wanted a divorce right after that, like 4 months after that. So talk about recreating yourself, but you don't know what that next best thing is going to be. And it's very hard in the moment to know that there will be another next thing.
What did you do? Did you go back into that to thy own self be true to say, now what? Or did you just kind of stay in that realm career because you were already getting paid in it?
Well, it was definitely a pivot moment. You talk a lot about the importance of that. And I had 2 small kids. We had just bought a house. And I answered a tiny 2-line ad, I think it was, in the Washington Post about needing an educational consultant. I didn't know what that meant. I could make that up. And that's what I did. I had enough skill set to both convince the people that they needed me to do the job, and enough desperation, if you will, to
I know that word real well.
Right? To prove to myself and to others that I could do it. And from that was a nonprofit. And I love your commitment to nonprofits. So, they just make an important difference in the lives of communities. So there was that nonprofit. Then I created another nonprofit and I've created several for-profit organizations as well. But I love what you just said about, when somebody's pinching your little cheeks and saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? There's a line in my current novel where there's all these really old ladies and people basically think they're done. They're over with, they're old ladies. But I
don't want to ask you how old they are.
Well, the youngest character is 15 and the oldest is 94.
Oh, okay, 94, that's good.
But there's just one line, and we should talk more about this in terms of women getting what they want, which I know is a passion of yours. Mm-hmm. One of the women says that we believed we once were little girls. Once upon a time, we were little girls, and we still believe we are.
Oh, and I love that.
And I just think that people view us as we age differently. We view older people differently. And secretly, we're still that little kid,
It's not even secretly. I'm so glad you said that, Grace, because I always think I'm like the only one. I get up and I still feel like I'm 16. I still feel like I'm just the same person inside. And then I'll go to the mirror. I'm like, maybe not. But inside, I'm still 16 or 21. But you're right. The outside changes, but the inside, and that goes for guys too. You're still that 20-year-old, and you feel, inside that personality and our soul and our spirit doesn't change. We grow, we age, and we mature, and we get smarter, hopefully. But inside, we still have that adventure. We still have those, we're still the same person, still have the same likes and dislikes. I mean, they'll evolve over time as,
Sure.
As we get older. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think the viewers might know exactly what we're talking about as well. We just
and you talk
know where's around. That's who we are.
Right. You talk a lot about, leaving a legacy. I talk about what is the mark you want to leave on the world. And they're really the same thing.
Well, speaking of mark, behind you, there's some marks behind you. Tell me about these marks behind you.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is a great representation. For me, when I started writing The Eves, this last book, I was really lost. Like,
what's the name of the book?
The Eves.
I want everybody to hear that. The Eves.
The Eves.
Okay.
And so when I started writing that book, I was 57, 58, 59, and I really felt lost. I had lost my role as mother for most part because my kids were grown and independent.
Empty
My
nest.
business was winding down. I was involved with this fabulous man, but I wasn't sure that was going to turn into a lifelong thing, which luckily it did.
I was about to ask you, did it?
It
Yay!
did. Yay, it did. I'm very lucky. So I was really lost. And for me, the question became, who are we when these roles fall away from us? Both of my parents had died. So I wasn't a mom, I wasn't a daughter. And I just really didn't know where I was going. And for me, I've always written, I've written several educational books, I've written a lot of articles. And one of the things that just came to me was solving my dilemma of being lost through this novel. And I was very lucky that here in Sarasota, I belong to a book club. And there's a scene in the book, and it repeats in different ways throughout the book. But there's a scene in the very beginning where one of the girlfriends talks to Jessica, the main character, and says, I saw you today. You did not leave your hand in the paint. You did not leave your mark on the world. And it is time that you stop hiding. And Jessica is very intimidated, but she remembers this image of the people putting their hands in paint and then leaving that mark.
That's like leaving your legacy, but that's like physically leaving your mark, leaving your legacy. Love that. Oh,
so my book club each put their hand in paint and put a quote from the book on it and gave me that present. So it was a great present.
Read me one of the quotes. Read me one. Which one's your favorite? Well, not favorite. We can't say that. Read me one.
Learn something new every day.
Learn something new every day. I love that. And they learned that from the book?
Yes. Live decisively. That might be one of my favorite ones. Live decisively.
Live decisively. And if you're not decisive, at least just keep going in a direction. Don't stop.
Pretend you're living decisively.
Right. If you don't know, find somebody who can help you make those decisions. I love it. That's so great. So you have this wonderful book. How many books have you written, Grace?
This is my fourth book, but it's my first novel, and it's a very different world.
What was the other one? Before we get to that one, the other three.
The other three are in the area of education. I'm an educational consultant by trade.
Oh, you said that. Okay.
After I wasn't Jessica Savage as a newscaster, and after I wasn't a university administrator, I turned into an educational consultant.
Jessica Savage?
Jessica Savage. Do you remember her from forever ago?
Oh, I thought maybe you had a different name. I'm like, you had a surname or something.
No,
okay.
No.
Yeah, no, the name sounded familiar. I'm like, wait, I know that name. Okay.
Jessica Savage was the youngest anchor on network television.
Really? Where? What city?
New York. She was a national network anchor, and she tragically died. She drowned at the age of 35, but she was a network anchor.
Oh, I think I remember this story. Okay. It kind of came out of the blue. Yes. Okay. I got you.
I totally wanted to be Jessica Savage.
Gotcha.
So several iterations, I became this educational consultant, and someone told me I should write a book, and I thought I didn't have anything to say. And 3 books later, I apparently did.
Okay. So now you're going to a novel. Real quick and like a bullet point, why a novel? Is it something you always wanted to do?
No, it really wasn't. I've always enjoyed writing. I think that when our stories are told, whether they're educational stories or the stories of our careers, everything changes. When we take the time to listen to others and capture their stories, our lives are enriched.
I totally agree. Totally.
Yeah, so I didn't have a novel in me. That was a surprise. And the world of, you talk about entrepreneurialism. When I was a educational entrepreneur, I sent out my first book to 14 different publishing houses, and 11 wanted them.
Wow! I thought you were going to say the other way around. Oh, you're one of those that everybody wanted it. I love that. That's rare.
Not so in the world of a novel. A novel is a much harder beast to get out there. So learning to do a novel in a pandemic, lots of opportunities to learn.
Oh God. What's one reason why somebody should read this novel? Like I know everybody knows binge watching TV and movies, and I'm one of those. I love TV and movies. And if I sit down at night, most people pick up a good book. I'll pick up a good, TV show or a movie or whatever. But still, a lot of people want to sit down with a good book, or they want to go outside now because we're still so quarantined, can't get in crowds. So books, I'm sure, are a refuge for so many that can sit outside, maybe be kind of close to people, still apart, but reading a good book around other people, maybe at the water or at the park. So tell us, why should they pick up your book? What are they going to get from it right now?
I think there'd be a couple of reasons. First of all, it's very much a story of strongly drawn characters who are very diverse. It's definitely a timely book. We have African Americans, we have Latinx, we have a lesbian couple, we have a diverse group of ages there. It's about families. Families can be very funny places.
Oh yeah.
And it's about families that are very fractured and broken and what happens to people in it. It's also very much, I think, about two other things. One is realizing that we have conversations that we can no longer have, like with our parents. And then there are conversations we might want to have with our children, but they're not ready to listen to us. They're still at that stage where they know it all, or they
Oh,
don't come.
teenagers. I got it.
And even young adults, I know that at my age, I so much more appreciate my parents. What was it
Oh,
like for them to leave me at college? What was it like for them to not see their grandchildren all of the time? What were those kinds of things? And I think the last thing would be the pandemic particularly has, I think, given many of us, including myself, pause for how we want to age. Do we want to age in place? Do we want to age with others? What mark do we want to leave on the world? But the women in the Eves definitely have chosen to come together to live on this sustainable farm and make a difference in the world.
interesting.
So there would be a couple of reasons people might want to read it.
Oh, just a good, enjoyable book. And why the Eves? What's the title mean?
The older women very much believe that they are not at the end of their lives, that they are starting something new. So in some ways, they feel they are birthing a new adventure.
Well, there you go. That's the tagline right there. So this is good for old, because I love my demographics when I talk to are 40 and up. I won my Emmy Award when I was 48. A wonderful mentor of mine, Mary Kay Ash, didn't even start Mary Kay Cosmetics until she was 45. She's always been a role model for me. I met her. I was trained under her. So it really left an impact, a mark in my life that you're never too old. And I know I want to do a list too of other women that have started even later, because I know that there's women in their 60s and 70s and 80s that have done something new, that have started a new career or hobby or something that's made a difference way late, maybe run a marathon at 85. So those are the women that inspire me, because it's not done until our last breath. And nobody needs to tell us any different, like, you're too old for that, or it's time to retire. Retire when you want to retire. Retire from something, then move on to something else. But you never stop living. You never stop living your legacy. Even if you're homebound in a wheelchair, you have a legacy to live. Thank God for the internet, because now you could be sitting at home online at any age you want and be reading novels, writing novels, sharing your insight, your genius with the world to the day you die.
Absolutely. My next door neighbor has never been a member of a gym, and she's 77 years old, and she joined a gym this week. So that's pretty amazing.
Good for her.
And
Good
I
for her.
think not letting circumstance define us. I think we kind of started there in a way, right?
We have to.
You got fired, you didn't get fired, you're in whatever. I know that now people are really struggling with this pandemic. Where do we send our kids to school? How do we send our kids to school? You know that story well.
Yeah.
Do we go back to work? How do we go back to work?
When will we go back? When will anything ever go back to the same? And a lot of it won't. So I am going to be doing some upcoming shows on new careers because of 2020. What's in, what's out, what made it, what needs to rest in peace. Because we need to raise up our kids to know these jobs you used to think that you were going to go college and get aren't there anymore. They're not lucrative anymore. Or why struggle when you could just pivot your genius in the same category, but go over here instead. Because of 2020, this is a better route. So yeah, we're going to be diving into a lot of that. But through it all, Grace, we need to read good books. We need to keep our imagination going. We need to have joy in our life. It cannot always be work, stress, making decisions, and always as women, I know we're juggling everything always. And I'm so a fan of just sit down and do something for you, whether it's a manicure, pedicure, hot bath. For me, good TV show, good movie. Other people pick up a good book. I'm always the type, I wait for the movie to come out, but that's just me. I want every category of people that are out there to know it's all good. Whatever makes you feel good, go do it. Sit down, get your favorite beverage, whatever it is, tea, cocoa, coffee, martini, doesn't matter. And people like you, Grace, we need, because we need good content, good choices to pick up new books every day, just like we need new TV, movie, and a good new bubble bath fragrance. So for women.
And we have to put it out there. I love that you're going to be doing some shows on the unknowns of where we have to create ourselves now, because we don't know, right? We don't know. So let's create that world. People say to me all the time, oh, I'd love to go live with those old women. Well, I say, let's create that.
Let's create, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And the women, like I said, that is my peeps are 40 and over, because that's when I hit my stride. I had cancer at 38. On my 38th birthday, they ripped out my vocal cord nerve and half my lungs and my thymus, a whole bunch of stuff. Said, you'll never speak again, but you're curable. Good luck. That's at 38. So I almost didn't make it to 40. And when I made to 40, I just started to be able to feel a little better. I mean, it wiped out my body. Chemo almost killed me. So at 40, I was just be able to walk again, because I was so out of breath. I mean, nothing worked right. And now with this pandemic, I am so in isolation because I only have one lung and I don't have a thymus and only half my diaphragm works. So there's just so much, but I don't live thinking about that. I live living my legacy, because you never know when your last one is. So at that moment, I realized we're not guaranteed to live to 40, but when we do, it's like, okay, it's like the race began. I started my own TV show. I wrote my book. I wrote my biography, and then I won't survive, I'll thrive. And I just started hitting that stride. So girl power, 40 and over power, 50 and over power. And I'm only a year and a half away. What?
60 and over power.
Just about to say that, because I'm a year and a half away from 60. And don't you think that I'm not going to give so much empowerment to 60 and over coming up in the next, 18 months? For sure, because it is not over. It's just beginning. So I'm so glad y'all are watching this show. Grace, thank you for being a wonderful guest and a wonderful new friend. I'm so glad to have you in my world now. And if you know anything about me, you're stuck with me forever. I will always support you and be there for you. You're fantastic. Thank you. Actually make me want to read your book. So I am going to go read your book. And if I can read a book, you all can enjoy her book as well. I'm just not a big reader, but this one has really got my attention. I think I would enjoy this one. So thank you so much.
Well, great. Check it out on Barnes & Noble and on Amazon and on my website at gracesammon.net.
And we will have that up. We'll have it in the links. So click on those and enjoy. And we'll show this often. And Grace, thank you so, so much. And thank you all for watching Success Talk, where you get great success conversations from people like Grace, who have been there and done that. And we're constantly recreating, reinventing, and sharing our wisdom and knowledge along the way with all of you, especially ladies 40 and up. We can do it. So go out there and earn more so you can live more, so you can give back more. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.